Welcome to Week in Horror.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
The podcast that deep dives all the films you love.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
The week they dropped in horror history.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
With your horror hosts, JL. When a shirtless Sam Elliott with no mustache takes out an alligator with an oar, that's the kind of movie I'm looking for. Eugene.
And we're just casually just like, yeah, so this is probably the best way to go, light someone on fire with gasoline.
Alex.
It would not be an original lineup if I didn't have fucking technical difficulty.
Johnny O.
Now, it's not an Amityville, or wherever, it's Amityville.
And Aaron.
They got manure to work with and nothing grew from it.
News, trailers, trivia, special guests, and more.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Live show every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central at youtube.com/weekinhorror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
And wherever you listen to podcasts.
One by one, we will take you.
Week in Horror. Stay scared. Oh shit, is it me? It's me. Welcome, horror fans. Totally didn't have the script up. Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only syndicated podcast in Tromaville. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast host, you too can join us here on YouTube for all of the bloody fun of the live show. Join us. You could get stuff. It's amazing. This week, we are covering select horror films released October 16th through October 22nd. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am JL, and with me tonight are Aaron and Eugene.
Hey, hey.
Everybody.
He's so excited.
I'm like, this is just like, oh, I need more liquor.
Oh man, it's wild. So it's been a really interesting week. Really cool stuff. Kind of like on my personal channel and all the stuff that I do over there. It's just been absolutely wild and crazy and just nuts. And of course, the face of horror stuff that's going on that I'm currently involved with. You know, that's we're gonna update that here in just a second, but. My week's been kind of nuts, but I'm so glad that we finally get to sit down and we get to talk about these the films we've selected tonight, because I'm excited about these ones. But first and foremost, I got to ask y'all, and I noticed here in the live chat, actually, but first, before we jump into it, let's see who we've got in the live chat tonight. Let's just, first and foremost, we're going to put up the banner. There's our Patreon banner, all of the amazing people that help to make the show possible. Thank you all so very, very much. And let me go through the list to see who we've got tonight. Wrote it no last name was here first as one more hour to Halloween. One more hour to Halloween. Silver Shamrock, yes, because we are talking about Halloween 3 tonight. Underrated fucking horror, in my opinion. I mean,
oh, God, yeah.
Yes. I Heart Dogs is here. Good to see I Heart Dogs. It says great titles tonight. Not sure I saw Halloween 3. Well, you should as soon as possible. It's freaking amazing. Travis Brown is here as well. One of our amazing supporters says, good evening, horror freaks and nerds. Good to see you, Travis Brown. Mr. Andrade as well is here. He said, oh, yes, he's talking about that current judgment that just came through. And obviously we'll be talking about, we could talk about that on another deal. But yeah, that's pretty wild. Let me see here. Jinju is here. Says, hello everyone, I have no idea why I'm wearing a silver shamrock mask either. Well, be sure to take it off before 9 o'clock. There is no grand prize. There is not. Let's see. Who else we got in the chat? NA is here. Good to see you, NA, another long-time supporter. Good to see you. Jinju says, that's a mind-melting can of worms worse than a silver shamrock mask could turn your brains into. This is very, very true. Elizabeth Sylvester is in the house. Good to see you, Elizabeth, another one of our big supporters. Thank you so much for being here. And I see Raven Darkstar as well. Says hello all. Good to see you, Raven. Denova28 as well. Says, hey, everybody. Good to see you. Sarcasm as well. Good to see you. Donnie does that. Look at all these amazing individuals. Our live chat is always awesome. Joshua Lee is in the house. Another one of our amazing supporters. Appreciate you being here, bud. As well as Tony Regime says, hello, Week in Horror, with all the obligatory alternative energies. Thank you so much, Tony. It's inside joke for ghosts. It's ghosts. But appreciate you being here, bud. Mr. Malort all the way from Chicago. Good to see you, Mr. Malort. Enjoy a glass of Malort on me. And then, of course, I see, yes, Joshua Lee, Tromaville. Absolutely. Rodin Los Angeles says, Eugene is buffering. Oh, wait, it's just his shirt. Joshua Lee says, where's the hat, Aaron? Because for those who are listening to this after, Aaron is doing his absolute best Freddy impersonation tonight.
I've got
Very well done.
Doesn't even need makeup. Oh,
no, the children killed me today. Fuck you, Jay.
All right. Yes. Okay.
Make me watch all these shitty movies and then show up and fucking roast me.
Sarcasm says, big crowd tonight for the epic turd polishing episode. This is not a turd polishing episode, my friend. We got good movies to talk about tonight. This does imply that we have talked about shitty movies in the past, but we have. But I'm not. No. Okay, these films are good. Okay, Facty's here.
Debatables.
Facty's here in the chat. Good to see you, Facty. Cindy Johnson as well. Good to see you, Cindy. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, I see. Annie says, "Ouch, bitch." And yes, Tony Regime says, I need the ghost energy to stop my internet from going down. This is true. I was trying to do a live stream last night on my personal channel, and like all the power went out. And not just our house, like the entire neighborhood. We couldn't find an area that had lights on. And it was creepy as hell because all the power went out, and we were like, what the hell? So we go outside, everything is pitch black. The street lights, everything is just out. And then you see like little flashlights popping up in people's homes trying to figure shit out. But it was out for like 15 minutes. And in this neighborhood, because I'm so rural, this area is so creepy when there's no power. Because it's just pitch black. So it was super, super interesting. And no,
super creepy.
Yes. He says, Travis Brown says, looks like jail is going to polish the turd for Halloween ends since early reviews are out. I haven't read any reviews. I haven't watched anything. I'm going to watch it when it comes out, and we're going to stream it when it comes out, and we're going to decide then. So, like I said, I did the same thing with Halloween, did the same thing with Halloween Kills. I'm going to watch it and make up my mind for myself.
Yeah, don't read reviews, because if you read reviews and you go and watch the movie, you see everything you point out. A shitty review makes a shitty movie. Just go see the movie. If
Bingo.
score is low enough, you can avoid it. But if it's anywhere above a 3, just go see the damn movie.
Tony Regime says, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go. I'm telling you, it's going to struggle. It's going to struggle. But go ahead.
Tony Regime says, oh, JL, I can feel the burn from that jab at Aaron from here. He's just shaking his head. Oh, fantastic.
Metaphors.
Charlie Welch. Charlie Welch is in now. It's good to see you, Charlie Welch, the only man on the internet you never make a bet with, and also one of our longtime supporters. Good to see you, and Mr. Android as well. Thank you so much for hanging out. So, first and foremost, now that it's been out, and I've had the chance to see it 4 times, and I know y'all have probably watched it once or twice, Hellraiser. Hulu's new Hellraiser. Initial reaction.
You saw that movie 4 times?
Yeah, I've watched it 4 times so far.
4?
4 times. I watched that 4 times, and I watched the movies that we have to. Actually, I technically watched all 4, but 2 of them were like rewatches, and but nonetheless. But yeah, I've watched. Fuck yeah, I love it. It's amazing, and I want to see all the little details. I want to pinpoint all the little things about it. But and Hellbound Heart, the short story that it's based off of. I want to see. It's like how true to this, how true to Clive Barker's original vision did they get, and it's on point. So I fucking loved every aspect of it, especially because some of the things that I've read about in reviews that people are complaining about, they don't really grasp Clive Barker's vision and the vision that is literally rife through all of his works. So if you look at like things like Candyman and Lord of Illusions and all the stuff that he's created, if you go to the actual books, there are thematic elements in that, and basically his male and female characters usually behave in a certain way. So there are relationship dynamics that are very important to Clive Barker's work, and he uses them time and time again because that's the kind of universe of the world that he writes in. And so, when these get reflected, when these get reflected in the actors, some people will interpret that as like, well, why are they acting this way? Because that's what Barker intended in order to get specific themes across. So what people are mistaking for something bad is actually really, really good, and that's why Clive Barker and Doug Bradley have both like signed off, said this thing, they absolutely love what they did. So I fucking loved it, and I've watched it, like I said, 4 times. I probably will watch it a 5th if I get bored. So I want to get y'all's reactions to it.
It was a really good movie. I'm still trying to decide if it's a great movie. The big thing is, if you walk in, don't walk in judging it based on the movies you've seen. That's just plain unfair. But it's a really, really good movie as a standalone. There's some stuff looking back that I think they could have held over from the older movies to kind of. They were elements I would have liked to see and explore in the original movies, and they may have been in the comics, but now they're kind of dropped dead. The same as canon killing with Star Wars and some of the Star Trek offshoots and stuff. But beyond that, I mean, as a standalone, it stands up. It's a great movie. I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, you're really gonna enjoy watching it if you don't walk in saying this better damn well be like the original, because it's just not gonna be, ever.
Eugene, you're uncharacteristically non-hyper verbal at the moment.
Oh, I watched it yesterday, and it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's not anything that's like, oh, it's not trash. It's anything. It's a movie. The thing to me is that it's forgettable. Like, when I watched it 4 times, I felt like I watched it once. Okay, I'm good. Like, it's not bad. It's like, I enjoyed it, but it's not something I'm gonna like put on my rewatch list. Like, say the first 3. Like the first 3, yeah, I watch those all the time. But going to that one, I was like, okay, that's a good movie. Okay, what's next? Like, that's just like, that's how it just felt like. It was just missing something. It was just something to really even when y'all said it was like it's a good movie, not quite sure it's a great movie. That's where I kind of agree. Like, it's good, but this isn't a movie I'm going to be thinking about 5 years from now, or I'm going to be talking about and stuff unless it pops up on the podcast. But that's just kind of like, okay, it was good, it was neat, but that was it about it.
So the reason I watched it so many times, and I'll probably watch it again because I like it, and I just really enjoyed it. But so first and foremost, the reason you first watch it because it's out, and you're going to watch it, and you're going to take it in for what it is. The second viewing and the subsequent viewings that I have are then to kind of critique what I'm watching, because now that I know the story, know what's happening, I can pay attention to other details in the film. So first and foremost is all about the special effects. What they pulled off, what looks good, what does look good, all of it looked fantastic. And then, of course, the creature designs of the Cenobites themselves and how they were able to pull off the different deals and what they kind of did with them. Because, like they say, the devil is in the details when it comes to it. It's the little things that they put in there that you may miss on that first viewing. So I go in there to watch that, and little things like how it's not really focused on, but there are certain things that when you pause it and you look, you can tell. Like, for example, Jamie Clayton, who was fucking magnificent as Pinhead, didn't ape Doug Bradley at all. Made it her own. It's inspired from what Clive Barker originally wrote. I loved it. It was inspired. But when you look at things like the design of it obviously is markedly different than Doug Bradley's version. But the big thing on this one is like it's little things like this. Like if you notice, because effectively she's a priest. If you look at her, or if you look at the kind of like the way it's not really her outfit. The character's skin is flayed from her legs, all around her legs, and then it's stretched and pulled down so that it looks like a robe. But it's actually the skin of her body from her waist down, and you can tell when you look at the design how the skin has been pinned back down to the waist in order to create the robe look as the flaps sway down around her legs. So it's little details like that. It was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And then so the form and functionality of the costuming and the makeup design and the prosthesis are really, really magnificent. Then you go through and I watch it for the acting and I watch it for the writing. So I say, how are these actors pulling it off? How is the writing in this? Are things conveyed the way they're meant to be conveyed? Is this really taking inspiration from Barker's work? How much is the writers really putting in this? And then you look for the direction, which is this was David Bruckner. David Bruckner who directed this, and he did fucking amazing. And not to mention David S. Goyer, who is a well-known producer, was also an executive producer on this. So you can see where their talents are. And of course, so with Bruckner behind it and Jamie Clayton as Pinhead, and shouldn't be the focus. The focus is the characters, not the Cenobites. That was important, because that's like the short story. The Cenobites are functions of what they're doing, not the story to be told, which is where the original Hellraiser films kind of like lost the plot, because everybody wanted to see Doug Bradley. So this was very, very well done, exceptionally well done. The little bits and pieces, the attention to detail was phenomenal, and that's why I just fell in love with this. I fell in love with the whole thing, and thought it was brilliantly done. Any of the little things, like if you say that there were minor weaknesses, and you say, well, I can interpret that as a weakness, but it's not, because that's how Clive Barker intends to portray these characters, so they can convey certain things. So that he can convey certain human aspects in relation to the Cenobites themselves and why they do these things. So well written. I wish I could write to that degree, for the screen, to adapt something like that. Oh, it was just fucking stunning.
Well, it's going to suffer, too, from the fact that, or at least it's going to suffer as far as how people review it and address it, from the fact that the original Hellraiser came out at a perfect time, not only because it's body modification, or body horror, but it got pushed through by the slasher, the tail end of the slasher boom. Horror movies were a lot more popular back then, very frankly, but also the subculture and stuff that it's attached to, because in this one, like you said, they used a lot more flesh, whereas in the original they used leather. He wore robes, but they were leather, and it was kind of attached to the leather culture, BDSM, which goes along with the fact they're exploring sensation. And the original, it's kind of hinted at, it's not just pain, it's also pleasure, which they're both just nerve stimulation to one degree or another. And so all those things, the body modification, that's why I said that, is also tied to the fact that, people had begun piercing and altering themselves, and that was taken to an extreme. So it's not got that cultural tide to carry it quite as well. So that's going to hurt it as far as what people remember. But as far as the movie construction itself, it's still pretty solid, I think.
Nice.
Well, see, and that's the thing, the issue I have is it falls into the good category, but it's just good. It's not the great. The great and excellent one are the films you constantly keep going back, and then you have the really bad films that just sear them in your brain, and you'll never forget them because they're just so bad. And the new Hellraiser kind of falls in this kind of in the middle area where it's good. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's a good film. I did enjoy it, but I wouldn't say it's a great film. And so then it kind of I see it falling through the cracks of it's those films you watch them one time and they're like, man, that was a really good film. And then you just never watch it again, or you never talk about it. And there's nothing wrong. It's just one of those like, oh, okay, it's pretty. It's like you have a film that's like so good. 80% has good rewatch value. 10% or below are so bad it's hilarious. But you have that. It's like a 70. I would give it about a 70. So it's like it's but I wouldn't go back to it very often.
Awesome. All right, and in the live chat, let's see what we've got. Charlie Welch says, it's Aaron Kruger. It absolutely is Aaron Kruger. Travis Brown says, I've only seen one review, and that's of Halloween Ends, and I want to watch it no matter what and give my thoughts. Excellent. We're going to do that ourselves. Let's see. Mr. Andra says, enjoying Indian summer out there, but winter is coming. It absolutely is. It's starting to cool off outside. Genova says, I try to avoid popular opinions, judge for myself. Always an excellent point. And then, of course, Ronan last name says, except for the monsters, reviews were what I expected. Absolutely, which is why we haven't really talked about that, because we already knew what was going to happen with the monsters. David Cernick is here. Good to see. I haven't either.
Still haven't seen the monsters. I have no intention.
I had no idea he was going to be on Netflix. I was like, that's on Netflix? Like, straight release? I was like, okay.
I have a 4-pound hammer on the wall right there next to a steak. I would gladly smash my testicles with that hammer before watching the monsters.
Fucking brutal. Oh, Dave Sertic is here. Good to see you. Dave says, hi, guys. Coming in to hang out. Good to see you. Thank you for the ghost. Sally Skellington is in the chat. Good to see you, Sally. Thanks so much for hanging out. Sir Captain says, Pitch Black and the sequels are my favorite sci-fi franchise. They are excellent. Do love them. Travis Brown says, Hulu Hellraiser is good, but should not have been 2 hours. I didn't have a problem with the running time. Maybe it could have been shorter, but I loved the exposition. Thought it was fantastic. Nemo813 is here. Good to see you, Nemo. Thanks for hanging out. Tony Regime says, I'd rather see a movie that has average reviews and find it's better than expected than see a film with lots of hype that ends up being disappointing. Good point, Tony. Excellent point. And he laments that, damn, I don't have time to watch movies during the week. Yeah, it takes some scheduling. It absolutely does. Let me see here. Sir Captain says, I'm only halfway through Hellraiser. No fucking spoilers. We will not spoil anything for you. Because obviously, moratorium on that one. Let me see. Rodeo Last Name says, I really love the new puzzle box design in Hellraiser. Its cube configuration, I mean. Actually, yep, I'd love that too. Don't want to spoil too much. And then I see Genova28 says, I'd put the new Hellraiser on my favorites list. Awesome. Tony Regime wants a remake of Cabal and Cabal or Nightbreed. I absolutely want one as well. And I know you mentioned...
finish it.
Yeah,
I'd like to finish it. They never finished the original.
H. Jasperese here says, good morning. Good to see you, H. Jasper, another one of our amazing supporters. Thanks so much. Travis Brown says, Jamie Clayton did a great job as Pinhead. She absolutely did. Thought she was fantastic. Just, two interpretations of the character, Doug Bradley and Jamie Clayton, and I thought that Jamie did phenomenally. So, and yeah, Denova says, Doug Bradley will always be Pinhead, but Jamie Clayton was downright intimidating. I loved it because Doug Bradley's personality and his performance that was what solidified that, was what solidified Pinhead as like kind of an icon. Jamie, played it as more, that character is a function of the dimension that they come from. So there's no real investment, there's no emotional investment there. She's not trying to be scary, she's just scary naturally. So presenting that as like, this is simply what it is. I don't need to be intimidating. I don't need to have an intimidating voice or anything of that, or do intimidating things. It's just scary regularly. So I love that. There wasn't like a reliance upon that. It just naturally is. And I felt it played so well.
It's not an I am intimidating. It's very much an I am eventual.
Right.
Do what you will, this will happen.
Mm-hmm. And Angel Rivera's here. Go ahead.
And that's something I've always liked about in terms of villains, where it's like they're you can't reason with it. You can't really bargain. You can't do anything. Their goal is just to serve their purpose, their function, and that's it. They follow that plan, and there's nothing you can do to drive them off that plan. I like villains.
Right. Yeah. Angel Rivera's here. Good to see you. Says, what up, Week in Horror? Hope you had a scary week. It was kind of scary at some places, but it was fun. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And Travis Brown says, what's with the stamp on the new Pinhead on her neck? If you actually look closely, it's not a stamp. It's actually a rod that goes clean through her neck. So because if you look, because there's angles when she turns around and you can see the side, it actually goes clean through her. So, and they did that exceptionally well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the whole structure of everything around the neck looks like a heightened priest collar if you really look, because it's not quite the same as a Catholic's priest collar square, but it's got that geometric design focusing on that center, because you can see it shine every time the light hits it and it catches your eye. That is in itself brilliant. Makeup and costume design.
The functionality of it was just amazing, and how it played. Oh, I loved it. Oh, and I love that sequence when they grab the chick out of the van, string her up, in that conversation. Oh, it was so good. So in line with Clive Barker's vision.
Remember, no spoilers.
Oh, yeah. Rodinola's name says, so you could say that the Hellraiser series is, wait for it, sensational? I see what you did there, Rodent. Angel Rivera says, so this was a different take from the original movie. Yes, this one is it takes more inspiration from Clive Barker's original work. And Sir Cat says, we can talk about it next year, on with the show. Absolutely. Travis Brown says, Rob Zombie's The Monsters is becoming so bad, it is good. That's not possible.
Nope.
Yes, I agree, DeNova. The new Monsters is becoming the old Mario Brothers movie.
At least the Mario Brothers movie's entertaining.
This is true. So before we jump on with the selections that we have tonight, we're going to do a really, really quick update. So everybody in the chat knows that I am currently going for the Face of Horror contest. The Face of Horror contest is currently in its 5th round. The cuts to round... Actually, this is where things get kind of interesting. The next cut is for the finalists in this one. Now, I'm currently still in first position in my group. When they make the cut... after they make this cut, there's going to be a little bit of a pause because they're going to do a little side thing, a little short round for all of the people who came in second place in all their groups. So I won't be in that one. So if they're going to make the cut tomorrow, I'm probably going to do a live stream just to, when we watch the clock flip, and then they're going to start it up again on the 17th. But the big thing about this one is I have to be in first. In order to continue on and have a shot at the grand prize, I've got to be in first place for this round for the cut, and then we're going to pick it back up on the 17th of October and then continue on. And that point, when the 17th starts, they're going to start resetting the votes. That's a big thing. So once the round starts on the 17th, which is after the little short round for all the people who came in second place in this round, when they start up 17th, they're going to reset votes to 0, and it's all going to start again. And then every round after that, for 7, 8, and 9, the final round, they're going to be resetting votes every single time. So, this is what's important. Get over there and vote, and I'm going to link it real quick. It's in the description, but I'm going to put it in the live chat in case you haven't had an opportunity. Bam! There's the link right there. You can pop over, and you can vote. So, I appreciate everybody's support in that. If I come in first in this one, I don't have to worry for a few days. And we'll pick it up and just take it one round at a time. Can you imagine if I take this thing home? It's going to be fucking sick. It's going to be sick.
Fucking hear the end of it.
Yeah, I am the Face of Horror, motherfuckers.
You are not.
Listen to me. I have
I don't
such
give a
sights
shit
to
how many
show
movies.
you.
I think
I
I
don't
will have
care how much of a
cemented.
director you are. I am the Face of Horror.
Look at me. I am the Face of Horror now. I think
The Week in Horror logo, the next one is just JL, and they were like tiny in the bottom. My face.
I think it would cement. I think it would cement our credibility, as I think is what it would do. I think that would really be awesome if we could take this home. I think this podcast, everybody's podcast would totally benefit from this. It would be absolutely amazing. So, this is true, wrote it in last name. Don't count your puzzle boxes before they're solved. I will not do that. I will not. So it's literally one round at a time. We'll take it one round at a time. As long as I keep coming in first, I'm golden. And I'm coming in first because of all of you. All of y'all's support and all of y'all's votes. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Look forward to the live stream that we do, the Face of Horror live stream that I'm going to do, where we kind of like catch up with it, watch the timer flip, and then get those last minute votes in. So, good times. All right, so I guess we got some horror movies to talk about, don't we? I know Aaron's looking.
Yes, we do.
I know Aaron's looking forward to this first one, man. That's the face of someone excited.
October 7th.
So yeah, what do we
October
have first, bud?
October 17th, 1965. Sting of Death. Fucking stinks like death.
They never should have colorized this thing.
Looks like in black and white.
This place is fantastic. Right in the middle of the Everglades.
I don't know why you brought all this when a couple of bikinis would have been enough.
John and I are working with sea life and evolution. That's why I'm located here on the island.
Law enforcement agencies all over South Florida have been alerted to look for some fishermen who have mysteriously disappeared over the past 5 days.
What are those things in the tanks? Some people call them jellyfish. Never seen them before.
It looks like a Portuguese man of war, but it's impossible. It's too big.
I tried to tell you it is possible, Doctor, for them to get that big.
You got it, Jella, or you're not a Jella.
Now for something completely different.
And do the Jella, Jella.
I think I'll cool off in the pool.
It isn't hard to do. Don't know the way that I'll show you how.
What was that?
What was what?
Sound like a scream.
Do it now. Do the jelly fish. Whoa,
Hey, it looks like a Calamity like fail video on it, where or something was like, kids say the darndest things, or America's Funniest Videos. And you're like, and they're like, ah, you're like, ha 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 ha, with canned
It's like
laughter
this
and everything.
movie. It's like this movie sucks. Come check it out for this reason. Like, oh. All right, let's see. Oh, went too far. So, directed by William Greffe, written by William Kerwin, and starring Joe Morrison, Valerie Hawkins, John Bella, and Jack Nagel. And it is the story of a group of, they're supposed to be teenagers, I think, but they're really younger adults that gather together for a party at a house that's located in the middle of the Everglades because they're doing research there on various aquatic life. And then a man manages to, I think this is old enough for spoilers, manages to turn himself into a jellyfish man and just start killing. And, yeah, I watched the first 30 minutes at normal speed, jacked it up to about 1 3/4 speed, and that's about right. This is an episode. There is so much filler on this thing. It is painful.
Yes, you are correct, and it's funny because yes, Mr. Antrad, jellyfish monster, what the fuck? And absolutely, you're totally right. And I heard dogs actually with Neil Sedaka. It was like, what the hell? The wild thing is, Neil Sedaka does not appear in this film, even though he's in the fucking credits. They use one of his songs, but he doesn't actually appear in the movie anywhere, which was kind of a shame. It would have elevated this a little bit, but yeah. So number one, like I said before, this movie should never have been colorized. In color, this thing is even worse. This could have played off of being black and white, like the poster, but a colorized version of this this did not work at all. I should have watched it in black and white because when it was in color, I was laughing my ass off. Especially in the boat scene when the boat capsizes and like all the plastic bags that are like floating in the water that are supposed to be jellyfish. I was like, those are fucking plastic bags. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Solid black, and it still would have been a piece of shit. Color is not the determining factor.
I'm sorry. When the monster finally shows up in the fucking bag on his head, it's a guy.
They spent all this time on the reveal, and then just suddenly it's a guy in a spray painted scuba suit that looks like he's screaming to be saved from a fucking balloon.
Wrote it no less names as jellyfish. I'm floating right at you. It was just, and not to mention, come on guys, he's wearing diver flippers. Like, it's obvious. It's like, it's
you can
beyond.
see his ankles between the flippers and the pants.
Okay, so the big thing is, Denova says I would have sued to get my music removed. Absolutely. The wild thing about this one, and the reason I want to bring it up is, one, it technically is a horror movie. It's a creature feature is what it's designed to be, even though it was absolutely ridiculous, way too much exposition, way too long, terrible, everything is just bad about it. But the reason I want to bring it up, the reason I included wanted to talk about it is because films like this, like Sting of Death, actually have a place in horror history. And it's something that a lot of people might not be aware of. And it typically, this range is about the late 50s to the early 70s. And this is an example of films that were once kind of like the vanguard of horror because of how horror films were marketed to the general public. And nowadays, it literally has gone from the vanguard to the stocks. Now, we just laugh. We do what we do. We just laugh at them. This MST3K fodder is what it is. It's Elvira fodder. Joe Briggs. And the whole point was, but these films used to be like the standard, and those were regional horror films. And those were important. Regional horror films have used to be the vanguard, now they're in the stocks. But they're important because it goes to show the cultural acceptance and how horror has kind of been handled throughout film history.
Yeah, well, it's like Roden No Last Name said, the horror at Party Beach. Yeah, so this is really a hybrid movie because you've got the rock and roll film influence, which, they're, the bands, because they have these really long dancing segments with the song on it. And there were these various ones, they had jazz influence stuff, but they were generally rock and roll films, and they were mainly based on the music that could be recruited for it, and they would fail or succeed on. The first couple of Amicus, I think it was the second, third Amicus productions, Hammer's leading competition, were these rock and roll movies. And then you have also the beach party films. You got Muscle Beach Party and Beach Blanket Bingo and all those. That same thing with the dance sequences and the way that the kids, that's quote unquote, I'm like, these people are damn near done medical degrees. The kids acted and everything, and they just like shoved some of this in there and that in there, and then the horror movie, and it's just like they were just playing around, and I'm like, you tried, guys, you tried, and you failed.
Well, so when you sit there and you think about it, is horror a lot of times will piggyback off of what's popular at the time. So when you have these rock and roll films that are popular, Elvis did about, and these beach party ones, what is horror going to do then to on top of it? Because that's what happens. Okay, now let's take those same party kids and let's throw a monster in and see what happens. Instead of having like the guy and girl fall in love, let's throw a monster and all this other kind of stuff. And I mean, ultimately, it failed on the monster in a very epic way, in epic proportion. But yeah, I mean, even sitting there, look at the trailer. This includes dancing, kind of thing, because when people go, "Oh, that's a fun beach party movie with a monster. I want to go see it."
That was, and I know that they were attempting to basically kind of convey this over, glom onto what's popular in the mainstream in order to sell a creature feature as essentially what was a regional horror film, and that was the big thing. Is like this was an attempt in order to make what were regional horror, a regional horror film, to be popular by glomming onto what was popular in the mainstream, the kind of movies that were selling in major cities. And that was the big thing, is like during this time, from the drive-in times when they would have double features, and this film itself was a double feature. It was released on a double bill with Greffe's film Death Curse of Tartu. That's a whole other ball of wax where we get into that one. But the point,
not get into that one.
So the regional horror film is important in that regional horror films were conceived, produced, and often distributed entirely in areas of the country that did not have access to like major theaters. So they would be like little drive-ins in the middle of nowhere. So it would be like the backwoods of Missouri, or like, the bayous of Louisiana, or the rural areas of Utah. Small little drive-in areas that had very little impact on the mainstream scene. So they would be small towns and small amounts of youth in these towns that would go and be driven to go see these films, and they wouldn't really see a release in other big areas because they wouldn't make any money there. So those little theaters that that couldn't afford the big prints of the big popular films at the time would get these little tiny regional horror films that were like very similar to this one. And the problem with them, the reason we laugh at them now, is because typically these films were they were so low budget that they really couldn't afford anything. So, as obvious by this, as you could see in this film. So the crews that were used to shoot them were typically local to the location that it was probably going to be released. And then the films themselves had amateurish to like no talent actors that like people that lived in the area, and they just kind of grabbed either from local theater or from just a basic casting announcement, a local casting announcement. And even the crews themselves had very little experience, so there was no money being thrown into this in order to make these films. And so that's why the exterior shots are all shot in the Everglades. Like every exterior shot is in the Everglades, and all the interior shots were shot at the producer's house. So they could get all the pool sequences and everything. And that's how you do it. That's how you made a quick, fast horror film back in the day. And then you throw in a little spice in order to make it kind of popular, which were all the music and the dance sequences, which are completely, you look at them now, it's like, fucking up your tranny. It's like granny shifting on your transmission. And it just feels so weird. It's weird to watch it now, but back in the day, this was how horror got to people. This was like literally what the horror genre was back in those days, back before we got like, Psycho and the slasher genre dawned on us. Like these little creature features that were just thrown out there to small little theaters.
Well, and they've got as a lure too, because like all the guys talked about it. You've got one bare naked ass through a translucent shower door with some side boobs. So, like, you were pushing the envelope back then with that because it was post Psycho. Like the fact that they showed a toilet, I'm like, at the time I was like, I know it's got to be post Psycho if there's a toilet in it.
Yeah. And so Joshua Lee says, don't forget, scantily clad women. Oh, yeah, scantily clad women. Or women in bathing suits that are out there swimming and doing all that stuff. Oh, those kill scenes were so ridiculous. Although I will give them this. The sequence at the very beginning, when the monster is dragging the girl that he's killed through the water, those were long shots. Which means that girl was holding her breath and not moving. And basically being a lifeless body in the water. But she was fully underwater. And the camera is like situated on her, which means they're tracking. It's tracking with her while he's dragging her by her hair in the water. So obviously I'm thinking that something was probably pulling him, and he had a hold of her, and he was pulling her. There may have been something attached to his arm that was able to support her, but she was underwater for quite some time, and some of those things were like 30 to almost 40 seconds and cuts. And that girl was like, and I thought that was kind of impressive. Especially for the time, it was like, that's really dangerous what you're doing there. Is he getting these underwater shots, having this actress hold her breath, and I don't know if they would have the money to have scuba divers around there to assist if necessary, but, I have to give them a little bit of credit for that. That was pretty inventive.
Well, if you look, a lot of them, it kind of indicates they're in relatively shallow water. She's somewhat close to the surface. So I think part of it was he was helped along by being able to look like he was swimming, but push with his feet. I mean, it depends because they use a variety of different shots, but they show the one where, she's being pulled along. It's the longest, like, cross shot on it. Mm-hmm. She's very close to the surface, so if something goes wrong, she's just bang right up to the top in a heartbeat. But some of them, they were working close to the bottom. But, given the technology and the budget, that they may be working down by the bottom of the water, but it's got to be kind of shallow to get enough light down there, because it's just got to have a certain amount of distance to penetrate. The one thing I give them is the fact that they were smart enough, because I'm watching this and I'm like, they're going to have trouble with creative kills. It only has one method of killing. So it's not going to be hyper interesting, but they just killed the entire boatload of kids all at once. And I'm like, thank you, God, every last one of them. So I don't have to suffer through a proto slasher with this damn thing.
And you're watching, you're like, great, another kill. Great, another one.
And all they are is just him grabbing them. Ah.
Yeah, because it's just in the face. Ah.
Yeah. Sir Cav says, best actress in the whole damn movie, and they killed her in the first 4 minutes. Damn straight, they absolutely did. She was just like on the dock, and then she just
couldn't afford her.
Yeah, they couldn't afford her. Nemo 813 says she was the swim team champion at her high school. That's why she got hired. So yeah, and of course, so in color is not the way to watch this movie. It's absolutely goofy, and because in color you could see all the things that they are wrong. Black and white would have been much better as a presentation. What we watched, the color version was actually re-released by Arrow. Arrow has the rights to it. They did a restoration of the film. And so that's the version that I watched. The original version that was released to theaters back in '65 was in black and white. So this was a new one. The black and white one I was not able to find. So unfortunately I was forced to watch the Arrow restoration, and it was just absolutely terrible. The only reason that films like this are important is because they're kind of like a mile marker in the history of the horror genre in this country. How horror went from big studio stuff like, the Universal Monsters, and then all of a sudden in America kind of slid off and only the really, really top-notch one with really well-named actors, and there weren't that many of them, got theatrical releases in major cities. Whereas this one, well, how does it get? And you can kind of see, which I found was interesting, you can kind of see the influence of these films on small towns and how they accept their horror, and why certain levels of horror are acceptable to small towns and small communities. And it's different from major metropolitan areas and their acceptance of what horror is, because major metropolitan areas really dig they want actors, they want solid performances, they want good special effects, and they want something that is artistic, that's really artistic and really well thought out. The low budget stuff was seminal to small towns, and that's why that kind of accepts it. So I like that dichotomy in how horror was presented to the nation as a whole, and how we can now see that today in the forms of entertainment that we enjoy. So kind of informs it. I found that to be really, really intriguing.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, it's a step along the way, and it's something we discussed in with How to Make a Monster. It's just the tail end of the creature feature era too, where it's going downhill. Even within horror, we're going more psychological horror. So they're just kind of spicing it up with stuff like with heavily covered bikini ass.
Wrote it, no last name, says, would the color palette they chose for the colorization be the Austin Powers? Yeah, it probably would be.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So the question we have for the audience, what is your favorite regional horror film? You can let us know at weekinhorror@gmail.com. You can drop it in the live chat or in the comments below. This one actually is going to be a really tough one, I think, for people, because it turns out when I was researching this covers a ton of ground.
It does.
Like stuff we now think of as major because the whole nation knows of them, were technically regional horror. The first release, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was regional horror. Didn't know that.
I didn't know that
Very
either.
cool. Regional horror, major player in the horror, and really informed the country's idea of what horror was and why certain aspects and certain tropes, certain horror tropes, became popular because of regional horror, which I thought was really impressive. So, because a few people would be like, well, why a film like this? Why does it get made? There's a reason. And they had to get these films out to somebody, and they were making them locally. And this is essentially how independent films really kind of got out there, because small little budget. I mean, for this, the monster in this, the jellyfish monster in Sing of Death, cost $300 to make, and took 2 weeks to put together. So it's like a $300 suit, and essentially it's a wetsuit with a bunch of, I swear to God, I thought they were Mardi Gras beads hanging off of the fucker. I seriously did. But $300 costume, 2 weeks to put it all together and make sure it's all good, and then you put it out there, and the budget on this is so low, no major theater is going to touch this. So you got to put it out somewhere, little tiny drive-ins in the middle of nowhere, especially in Florida where this one was shot. So
I can have you that for $50 tomorrow.
Absolutely. What you need is a clear, hefty bag to be the jellyfish.
You got to cover over the warning label that says "Do not place overhead."
Just cover, just orange duct tape.
All right. So, Eugene, what do we got next?
All right. Next up, we have It's Alive, which was released October 18th, 1974. Roll it.
It's alive. It's alive.
Can you hear me? It can't be saved. It's gotta die.
It's alive. It's alive.
Why are you so anxious to be the one to do it?
It's alive.
Doctor! Demons are here!
It's alive.
Now, nobody knows how this thing happened. It's really a matter of speculation, and I think
that
perhaps that's
goatee's
for the
gonna
best.
eat
After
him
all,
from the
if we
face up.
find out that the cause is medication that we manufacture and it was administered over a long period of time, well,
What do your interests recommend?
absolute destruction of this thing.
It went down the storm drains.
That's how it can travel the length of the city without anybody seeing it.
Don't touch me. Don't you touch me. They stole my baby. Come on, get down. Did you see it? Did you see it? What does it look like?
What are you
Get those cameras out of my face, please. I got no comment. That had nothing to do with this. Will you get that thing out of my face? Get out of the way!
He could have killed you. You know why he didn't? You know why he didn't kill you?
Look out, Charlie!
You've never been exposed to radioactivity in radioactive material or undergone extensive x-rays? No, Doctor, I told you. We can't rule out genetic damage.
Let go!
My department has already cautioned the police about excessive violence. If it could be dispatched with a bullet, or better still, some kind of a gas. Undoubtedly, it is very small, and any kind of bodily harm, especially from gunshots or explosives.
In other words, you want me to sign away the body, is that it?
Well, it's your right. After all, you are the child's father.
Welcome to the 70s.
Stop firing!
Oh, he shot that rubber baby right in the damn face, and I lost.
That's how you respond to a bit on you. He's just.
I said, get off the water heater. This is the last time I'm gonna tell you.
All right. You have It's Alive, directed by Larry Cohen, starring John P. Ryan, Sharon Farrell, James Dixon, William Wellman Jr., Seamus Locke, Andrew Duggan, Guy Stockwell, and Michael Arnezna? Something like that? I think that's close enough.
Michael and Sarah.
Yeah, Michael and Sarah. Yeah, with that one.
And
I
just ruined me, man.
I'm seeing it myself.
And basically what it is you have a couple and their second son turns out to be a mutant. And in a way, according to the police, shit gets real.
It kind of does. It absolutely does. Your baby is a big one. Probably 12 pounds. Holy shit.
God, when he's doing the exam or doing the questionnaire on her, they left off the portion where he was talking to her about possibly aborting the child. And they're like, and you canceled that? And they get mad. And I'm like, what the fuck do you think happens when you try to abort a kid? I'm like, did he come out with a coat hanger in its head, for fuck's sake? It's a monster.
It's a monster. Oh, so Travis, yeah, the live chat's cracking us up. Travis Press says, it's alive, weird science, ooh. Angel Rivera says, it's alive and bulletproof. Sally Skellington says, what is it? Anybody? Yeah, it was a baby, is what it was. Well, technically, it was a monster baby. But yeah, it's alive, definitely. And Nemo's 813 says, I remember when this released in theaters. Oh, yes. And Sir Captain says, that 30-second promo spot with the bassinet and the claw scared the absolute crap out of me. I was 5 at the time and went 53 years without watching this cause of that trauma. I get that. Yeah, the poster with the claw kind of like coming out of the bassinet is really kind of freaky. But, Rodeo Last Abe says, there was a beach. There could have been bikini dancing. But no, not in this one. And the reason, Sally's Skeleton says I'll pass on this one too. Actually, this one's not bad. Okay, now my co-hosts are shaking their heads.
It's not bad, but I'm just the reason I'm laughing is just because of the commentary from the freaking peanut gallery and that one shot with the revolver. I'm like, just too much at once.
The wild thing is that they have the scene where the cops come around. They're like, like guns at the camera, and they don't. They cut away from it. But the next is that it was an actual like baby, like a normal baby that was like sitting on the ground, like and it's like guns in its face. This shit was hilarious. So the big thing about it, the film is not terrible, and no sarcasm. It is not bloody awful. Oh, the plot hole is in the chat.
No,
It says, hello everyone in the land of live music, taking a break from editing. It's in flames and Meshuggah with the wife daughters. Cheers. Trivia answer is definitely going to be this answer here. No, it's not. So, but sarcasm, it's not bloody awful. Okay, so the reason this film is solid is because of director Larry Cohen. Okay, so we've talked about Larry Cohen's films before. We had Q, The Winged Serpent, on this, and a few other ones as well. So I know we've had Q, The Winged Serpent, and God Told Me To, and The Stuff. So Larry Cohen's work is unique, and Larry Cohen is a unique director because Cohen had, throughout all of his films, you can see Cohen has the unique ability as a director and as a writer to write intriguing plots, but as a director to pull together elements, all the right elements to make a production solid. So it's all the little bits and pieces that make this thing really, really good. And obviously, if those pieces weren't there, this film would have fallen flat. Number one, they don't really show the baby all that much. They show it in glimpses because it probably didn't look very good in reality. But everything, the way they do it, it's done exactly the way it needs to be done. And that can only be done in the direction of Larry Cohen. As you see in movies like The Stuff, and you see in movies like Q, The Winged Serpent, and God Told Me To, he only shows what is necessary in order to service the plot. And this one is not so much about the baby. It's so much about the journey of the parents, the mom and the dad. That's what this story is focused on. And then the idea that the plot being that what we can all relate to is the things that we cannot control about our children when our children are born. The kind of like the things we take on ourselves. It's not anybody's fault that the child came out a monster. Now that's the hyperbole of the horror film. But when a child comes out with, say, autism or Down syndrome or something occurs along those lines, that's nobody's fault. That's just what happens. And we follow the parents. Cohen is so smart in this. We follow the parents as they internalize what has happened. And we follow the dad, who initially, the mother is like, it's my baby. But the dad is like, oh, it's no son of mine, like this, until faced with it. And then he's overcome with the fact that, yeah, despite its monstrous appearance and behavior, this is still your son. And so we get to walk along the journey. So this is all about the parents, not so much about the monster itself. And it's a hyperbolic look at the things we can't control and the kind of anxieties and the fears we have about having kids and the things that can happen that no matter what you prepare for, something can go wrong, something could come out not the way you expected, and you could be surprised in a tragic or a negative way. And you just, as parents, these are the risks you take. So I loved that was the focus on this. If the focus had been on the monster, this thing would have fallen flat, absolutely. But Cohen was smart enough to make it about the parents and not about the monster itself, reflecting what we can all relate, or reflecting what we can relate to.
Yeah, and well, the thing about Cohen too is what we kind of talked about before with Frank Henenlotter and Abel Ferrara is the fact that he works really well with what he has available. Because even that era, you did not have as great a color range, as great a depth available with your film. He had less than optimal film even. He wasn't getting the highest price off the shelf, but he actually worked really well with that. There's a certain amount of ugliness to the visuals. I mean, you look at the interview with his boss when he goes in, he's talking to him about it. That boss is covered in sweat, and you're like,
right,
that guy just hogged down an 8-ball. But he works really well with that, and he doesn't try to pretty up the characters too much. They're very average looking people, average looking settings. not glitz and glamour. And they really, if you take it, the remastering on this too much, bringing it to too high a depth would be really bad for it, honestly, because it's just like we mentioned it with I think the prime one was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, really ugly film stock, kind of not sloppy but rough angle stuff like that. If you took that away, I think it would do a disservice to what is happening.
Right.
But if you read, like, so the novelizations on it focus more on what was going on with the pharmaceutical company, which I was surprised there was a novelization on that, but there's a little behind that too. But it focuses more on what's happening with the drug and everything else. But like you said, he was smart for what he ignored. I don't know if that was kind of part of their intention, they ditched it or not, but not going with that too far was a really great idea. Like I said, sticking with the mom and dad, but initially, so I think the trailer you showed, they released the sucker in 74. It did really poorly. They re-released in 77. They got smart, did a different marketing campaign. I think they did different trailers. I know they did a different poster. And they just marketed it completely differently, and it hit big. Yeah. So that he was talking about seeing the hand out of the bassinet, that was part of that. That poster that blew it up.
It kind of ripped off of Rosemary's. It kind of ripped off of Rosemary, the imagery of Rosemary's Baby, which was hot at the time. So it was like, this is kind of in the same, and it kind of is story-wise in the same vein as Rosemary's Baby. But in this respect, it kind of used that same imagery in the marketing, and and hey, you got to glom on what works. If something is working out there, make it your, use it, make it your own, but run with it.
Yeah, the only other thing it reminds me of was the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because it's just this baby that's like at the throat.
The kicker on this one is, like I said, it's all the little pieces that came together. So you've got music by Bernard Herrmann, who's well-known, well-versed. So you have a solid scoring, you have excellent cinematography. I thought that everything was caught. The fact that Cohen decided to show the baby very little and put the focus on the parents, just like Rosemary's Baby, where the focus was on the mother and what was going on around her instead of on the child itself. You had Rick Baker's effects, because Rick Baker was working on Exorcist at the time, and then was called up by Cohen to come and do the baby, and so he made the baby, the physical baby that and it was a pretty decent little articulatable model with movable eyeballs that you could, and then of course a mask for the close-ups. And so Rick Baker working on this. You got Rick Baker, you've got Bernard Herrmann, you've got Larry Cohen directing, you've got a decent story, and I love the light, and of course the lighting and the sound were really, really well done, really well captured. The baby was freaky as shit, especially at the time that this came out. It would have been freaky as hell. I can understand why they did the weird camera, Eugene, what do they call that? When they have two images, they kind of like overlay them, but it's like off in order to give the kind of weird perspective. Because they use that for the baby in order to obfuscate the baby, how kind of terrible it looked.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same thing. It's just kind of an overlay kind of thing. I mean, yeah, there's fancy term for it.
Superimposition.
So, and I understand why they were doing this, and I dug it. It's all the little pieces that he put together, not to mention where they were shooting, and you go from, and that's what I dug, is that you have different, every single area has its own kind of, has its own specific atmosphere that was specifically created. So the hospital has kind of like this strange alien sterile kind of environment to really emphasize the medical side of that, where it's not really inviting, and it has this very sterile, very kind of this very clinical to maximize the clinical atmosphere of the hospital. At the home, it's very warm, it's very cozy. Everything is, it's very very familiar. Outside in the neighborhood, it's all this washed out pastel, which really serves to bring the characters to life as living people amongst a kind of like fake and bullshit background, which I love. And then, of course, moving from this kind of like washed out kind of color to the dark danks of the LA sewer system off of the LA reservoir. So the way he frames each particular area was really, really smart and lends itself to how we're moving through the story and how we're going from the color down all the way down to the darkness of the final climax. When the baby does the blah and rabbits at the detective and everything. So And then, of course, then the little cliffhanger ending at the end. Another one was born in Seattle. Like, this is happening all over the place. But only because of Larry Cohen. The Larry Cohen effect does this work. The same thing was done in Q, the Winged Serpent, how the focus was on Michael Moriarty's character instead of on the monster was secondary to the story. It's all about Michael Moriarty's thief and how he's trying to capitalize on this shit. Oh, by the way, Quetzalcoatl is literally flying around the fucking city eating people. But no, it's about Michael Moriarty's character. Like same with God Told Me To. It's not about the psychic stuff and all this. It's about the cop who's investigating that shit. Okay, the same with Michael Moriarty and the stuff. It was all about Michael Moriarty and the people around him, and I think and the reporter that was with him investigating it. That's why Cohen stuff works. Is because he makes it relatable. He says these are extreme situations, but let's talk about the people that are involved. The focus shouldn't be the monster. It should be how we react to the monster. Cohen captured society in the best way possible, I think.
I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. If you're not, unless you were doing a slasher, because if you think most of the islands are ones of Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy Krueger, and so forth and so forth on it, any other type of horror film focused on the characters. That's just the way it is. People will go and they'll sit there and they'll watch Nightmare on Elm Street for Freddy Krueger. That's who you want to see. You want to see Freddy Krueger. Who cares about the other people that he goes and kills? It's always about Freddy Krueger. But following the same vein, when you're making a horror film, focus on your characters on it. Unless you're doing it on focus on your characters, because that's the way it should be on it. It should be, that's what drives it in. That's what makes you care on it. That's why when we're sitting there, we're talking about the sting of death. Oh, ha, 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 ha. Who cares? Who cares about any of them? Rooting for the scuba diver.
It kind of harkens back to what we were talking about with Hellraiser. The original version of Hellraiser had the Cenobites as a primary feature, and they were the big scary thing. Although in the original story, that's not the way they are. This is all about Christy Cotton's story. It should have been that. But she was kind of secondary to like the visual appeal or the visual spectacle of the Cenobites themselves. Whereas the new one focuses more on the character development, and the Cenobites are secondary to that plot. They're just functions of what is going on around them. That's why I dig Cohen's work, and I'll always like in his stuff because he has a real Cohen always had a real grasp of capturing the drama that occurs between us in extreme situations, which is exactly what horror should be. And I will say this. There was a lot of kind of drafting off of Rosemary's Baby to this, and I will say that John Ryan's performance in this, he was channeling some serious Gregory Peck, man. There were some moments there where I was kind of like, it was like, okay, come on, man. You saw Rosemary, or you saw like fucking The Omen, and you have these moments where you're like, I have to do this as the father. This is my responsibility. And he had like these kind of moments like, oh man, you're really, but he sold it. And he was good. A little on the misogynistic side. The way he treated his wife, I think the smacking around kind of thing is just I think it's a little just.
That's just it's just a little bit. Just
when he.
Well, that's the era too. I mean, because he was smart about how he tapped in national consciousness, because this was around the time of the thalidomide scare. They were having other issues with medications, and probably the people that general public worries about most are pregnant women. But hospitals, they were still coming out of a period where what you did is you got there, you said bye to your wife, you got your ass to the waiting room, they knocked her out and delivered the kid, and then you all met up later, basically.
Yeah.
So they kind of really played on how the beginning part, how the medical industry was very separate from how we really kind of bond as a family and stuff, to set it up really well. And like I said, he didn't harp on it, but he used it to initiate the action. And it's like you were saying with Hellraiser, the original, he was smart about it. And this is a nice thing too about not being hugely studio backed, is the original Hellraiser, Julia, the stepmother, was supposed to be the big bad, but test audiences like Pinhead more. Same thing, main audiences, and that's who they let drive it. They let the almighty dollar drive it. and they sacrificed a big chunk of what was charming about it. Whereas he is in a market where he doesn't have to worry as much about that, and he took advantage of it to the most.
And yeah, Sarcasm is correct. Sarcasm's comment says, Another Was Born in Seattle was an undisguised shot at the birth control pill that became so popular during next wave feminism. And you are correct. There's a lot of subversive social commentary throughout it, but that's prevalent in all of Cohen's work. Cohen essentially was following the same formula as Romero. There's always some form of social commentary running through his films. It's really apparent in movies like God Told Me To and Cue the Winged Serpent, because all of those focus on corruption. They have subplots of corruption in the police force. You can't trust anybody. The one good cop, or people trying to do good, and then there's always bureaucracy above them. He focuses on these and uses them as like, this is the environment we live in. And when extreme things happen, like a giant winged lizard flying around friggin' New York, or a monster baby is born, then we can see how these things really come out to play in this kind of hyperbolic environment, which is what I think just makes his stuff really, really smart. The same thing went with The Stuff. How The Stuff comes out. It's literally a fucking monster, yet corporations, because it tastes sweet, they're going to try and fucking market that shit, which is insane to me, but actually kind of believable in the world we live in, So yeah, The Stuff was all about commercialism. I love his undercurrents. Cohen had his finger kind of on the pulse, and I wish he'd been given more money to work with and really be able to do something. But when you're poking fun at some of the big things in the country, like this one was pokes fun at big pharma, like it's like we're fucking with nature and shit like that. I can get why people would be like, I don't really put my name on that as far as giving him money, but we haven't, so. So more like Cue the Winged Serpico. Absolutely, I would agree, because there were some bad fucking cops in that shit. It was like, hey, that's not exactly kosher what you're doing there, Mr. Officer, but hey, that was the reality. Cohen really captured it.
See, I think it would have hurt him to have more of a budget, honestly. I think it would have, one, it would have changed the aesthetic, but two, it also would have put him in a different market.
Right.
See, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Like, sometimes having a bigger budget isn't necessarily a good thing, because it forces you to solve problems that you can just throw money at. And so, maybe if it's like, if we had more money, we could design a better baby monster, and then we showcase it more, and then it ruins the big thing that we're just talking about.
It drives away from the story that makes it important, right?
Yeah, exactly. How come we don't see the shark very much in Jaws? Because the shark didn't work, and that's one of the best things. It's simply, and that's why one Jaws. You don't see the
but
shark.
The lack of shark gives us excellent character development between Brody and Quint, and I can never remember Richard Dreyfuss's character's name. I can never, obviously, fucking Brody and Quint, those are obvious, but Richard Dreyfuss's character, the three of them together, if the shark had worked appropriately all the time, we probably never would have gotten that boat scene of just the three of them together.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's one of the things that really put him together. I remember one of my favorite moments is him talking about the USS Indianapolis and how it went down. The way he says that is that's just a haunting portrayal. Like, it's believable that he was there. But as we digress from a different movie.
Yes, Sarcasm says, turd sufficiently polished.
So, I want to ask the audience, what is your favorite It's Alive franchise entry?
Because there are 4 films in this franchise.
Yeah, I was like, there's a couple of them on there, and this is the first one we've talked about so far, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, we've only touched on the first one.
On it.
Mm-hmm.
On it. So there's 4 entries.
Yeah, there's the original trilogy. There's the original trilogy, and then there was a remake done. It was a remake done, and in the remake they really kind of they leaned hard into the gore and the horror and the nasty elements. They kind of like the whole like subplots of the thing that went to the wayside because they just wanted to make an extreme horror film about a mutant killer baby.
See, this is one that the death of the mom and pop VHS shop right here. What the plague that was, because The one that we originally went to had deep stocks of horror movies going way back, and they closed down because, you know, the big names moved in. The big one we had around here that's cheap was Far More. It was Pharmacy More. They had a rental shop inside of something similar to Walmart, and it was the newest stuff. You didn't catch it new, you didn't catch anything, and that's just still, every time I think about it, I can smell that rental store every time I think about it. I miss it so much.
Tony Regimes. Oh, thank you. Angel Rivera says Richard Dreyfuss was Matt Hooper. Thank you very much. So Hooper, Quentin Brody. I'll commit it to memory. So I don't know why it always escapes me. Sir Cabs.
Richard Dreyfuss is Richard Dreyfuss in everything he does.
Pretty much. Tony Regime says technically polishing a turd is possible. You just need to leave it long enough to fossilize and turn to copper light. Oh, there you go.
Oh, that is very true.
Very true. Scientifically accurate. And Sir Cab says, I've only watched just the original and the remake was crazy bad without the great commentary. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend the remake, but the trilogy was kind of interesting. All right, so what we have next, and this one was a surprise. This one surprised me. Released October 22nd, 2012, we have the psychological slasher film Cassadaga. Or Cassadaga.
Supernatural psychological slasher film.
Supernatural psychological slasher film. Yeah. Cassadaga. Let's check out this trailer.
When Michelle died, I'd never felt so alone. Forced me to face the world again and to find a new path for my life.
Well, I'm so glad you've chosen Cassadaga University to be the compass for that new path. You may have noticed that there are a few areas that are locked. We are a bit particular when it comes to our privacy.
Hi. I'm Lily Morrell. I just moved here a couple days ago.
Mike.
Have you ever visited the spiritualist community on the edge of town?
I think there are places that amplify certain realities. I think Cassadaga is one of those places.
I invite the spirit of Michelle Morrell, sister of Lily, daughter of Colette. I invite the spirit of Michelle Morrell, sister of Lily. A different presence is with us. Leave us, ghost! Leave us! Once a vengeful ghost connects to you, it will not relent until you do whatever it is it wants from you.
Just a few yards from where I stand lie the gory remains of Jennifer Eastman, a Cassadaga resident who went missing 4 years ago. Her body was discovered in a hidden underground workshop where her limbs had been dismembered and then reattached to form a gruesome human marionette.
You are such a pretty girl. Pretty girl.
Why have they got to do the title like it's a fragrance?
Cassadaga by Poilywood. So yes, God dang. Oh, when you make me laugh sometimes, yeah. But Cassadaga, directed by Anthony DiBlasi, and of course, written by Bruce Wood and Scott Poily, and starring Kellen Coleman, Kevin Alejandro, Louise Fletcher, the legendary Louise Fletcher, Emilio Cicero, Russ Blackwell, and Sarah Skolko. So the film follows our character Lily, who, after losing her adopted, it's her sister, but she's a guardian. She's the official guardian of the sister after their mother passed away. But after losing her daughter or her sister, decides to relocate to Cassadaga for herself, kind of like kind of find herself again out of the trauma, and winds up embroiled in essentially the machinations of a serial killer that is operating in the area called Geppetto, and gets pretty. I would say shit kind of gets real in this one. It really does.
It has its moments, yeah.
It definitely has its moments. I will say that I will say this. So Anthony DeBlasi, I first came across him when I screened Dread back in 2009. Actually, I think it was 2008, and it was at Texas Frightmare Weekend. And so I got to see Dread, and I think Dread was released as a part of the films to die, the After Dark horror fest, 8 films to die for, and it's based off of Clive Barker's work. So I've been aware of him since Dread, and then of course this was his second film, and then he was a producer on Midnight Meat Train and The Plague and Book of Blood. But Cassadaga was surprisingly good. I kind of went into it, I was like, I don't know about this, but really solid acting, really good, well shot. This one's pleasant. I was pleasantly surprised. Aaron apparently did not like it at all, but and one thing I will say this, because so often we see big names. Okay, when we talked about Camp Coldbrook, and Danielle Harris was brought in for Camp Coldbrook, and she was just brought in just because of the name itself. I can't stand it when icons or like legendary actors are brought in just for name recognition or to give it some sort of oomph. What was cool was Louise Fletcher, the legendary Louise Fletcher, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So many other productions. Was not brought in to give this thing any real weight. Louise Fletcher wanted to do the film because the lead character, the primary character, Lily, is deaf. And the concept of that is intriguing her because Louise Fletcher has deaf people in her family. And so she loved the idea of the final girl, of the strong woman, this being deaf and overcoming that disability in order to overcome the killer. And using that, what we would see as a weakness, as a strength. She loved that concept, and she wanted to be a part of the production. So she's not used for that weight, which I thought was cool, and she was good. It wasn't a throwaway role, and it wasn't just like, oh, Louise Fletcher's being used for exposition. No, I loved her character. As small as it was, it worked, and I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed this, not to mention the first 5 minutes blew my fucking mind. It was like, that's an extreme way to open up a film, and I don't know if we can really say too much about it, because it's kind of graphic. But Aaron is correct. This was a polarizing offer. You either enjoyed it or you did not.
Yeah, and there were things about this that were great. The acting was really good. Even the mechanics of the writing were really good. At the beginning, like you're describing it, sounds like my family's tree. It's like my sister daughter got murdered. No, you get in one conversation in the car where what their situation is, because it evolves very quickly where you think, okay, well, they've shown she's a teacher, maybe she's a student. And then they keep going from there where they develop on that, where you learn that, okay, it's her little sister, maybe it's the big sister, little sister program. But then the single mention of the word mommy, where she relates it in a way that's common to both. Okay, these are blood sisters, and they've lost their mom. Really good way to lay out the exposition and dialogue really quickly. Gets it out of the way, gets you where you need to be. They do good acting. I mean, even the scene setups are really good. My problem is the fact that this is a melange film where they have taken too many things from too many other films and just shoved them in, because they've got your hyper successful serial killer films where they're putting people together. Let's throw that in. Oh, we got a haunting film. Let's throw that in. Well, we got some psychic stuff. Let's throw that in. And it deserves it. Honestly, they could probably stripped out some stuff and it would have made it better, in my opinion, because they would have had to develop a deeper plot rather than trying to get so much in. It's not bad. It's mediocre, like somebody said. The scent of mediocrity in the chat. It's that it had a bad spine, so the rest of its bones were flopping around like the jellyfish from the first movie. If they had gone and done the foundation right, I think it would have been a good movie, to a really good movie. But I don't think they put that in correctly before they started developing on it.
You see, that's the thing is, and it pulls from too many genres on it. So when it's like okay, it's a supernatural feel. Wait, it's just a serial. Oh wait, it's a beyond kind of thing. It kind of throws you off because each one of the genres has its own roots that you want to leave in and you want to develop, because those are things we're looking at for example, like a supernatural film. You're looking for, obviously, it's going to be a little bit more creepy. It could have some, obviously, like some jump scares. Would have to have them, but a lot of them will have jump scares, and it's a whole supernatural feel when you look at things like in the Ring. But it's kind of like, take like Insidious, right, which is a great film, and then you find out it's just a serial killer. It's kind of wait, what? Okay, on it. So it's just I agree with Aaron. I wish it kind of stuck a little more to one. Like it's not a bad film. It definitely has some great effects on it, and like I said, the extreme scene with the boy, and I'll just leave that. Just right. That. Yeah, you can watch it for yourself if you want to see what happens. On it.
Well, they say grab him in the first 5 minutes. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's it. I watched it. I was like, all right, you have my attention.
You have my attention. It's like, oh, we're going in that direction. Oh, my goodness. So that was the big thing of this, and yes, you are right. It does pull from a lot of elements. At first, it starts out, you got the drama element of Lily and her sister. And then it starts off with her death, and that gives our character drive. So they kind of fridged her sister in that respect in order to move the character on. And so then you have the setup. Cassadaga is actually a place that exists. It's a little unincorporated kind of commune town, sort of like village of essentially, which is like the psychic capital of the world. And so it's a legitimate place. They went out there and they shot out there. And then of course it moves from that into a ghost movie, into a serial killer movie, into, I guess the end was kind of action respect, in that respect. So it does take a little bit. There's even I even recognized it. As far as script-wise goes, the writers pulled a line from Half Baked in this, and that's when Louise Fletcher is smoking a joint. She's like, it helps with my glaucoma, and it's not too bad for my arthritis either. And I'm like, you straight stole that from Half Baked. It's like, come on, guys. But I will say this: what drives this one was the really, really good acting. I thought Kellen Coleman. I first saw her when she was on Scandal. And then recognized that she was in this. I was like, quite, because she's a very talented actress. Never overwrought, never oversold. Went through it, and I liked it. The moments where she was supposed to be big were perfectly timed. She was well acted. And it was the acting in this is the one that got me. Nobody was too much or over the top. So nobody oversold it. So I could follow the characters, and they never pushed me out of my suspension of disbelief. So I liked that. The script was serviceable. It had a good story and a cohesive story. Each element that you bring up, all those different things they pulled from, I think got equal time. And I think, in my opinion, created a positive feedback loop where one aspect ran into the next aspect and ran into the next aspect to set up this eventual climax where, we get to the final showdown with the serial killer, with the Geppetto killer. I was a little annoyed if you stay till the end of the credits. There's the actual after credit scene, and I thought that was kind of ridiculous because it sets it up for, I guess, universe building or a sequel, which I thought was just silly. It's like, oh, now all of a sudden she's got the powers and shit like that. But, Sir Cab says the blind psychic was over the top. That's just character. It's just, character actor. It's just one of those things in order to sell the moment. But nonetheless, I think it pulled equally from all things. It made them work. It was a serviceable film. It was what I'm saying. It's not the best, but it absolutely was. Given everything that went into it, it was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Well, part of that's the fact that they haven't marketed in place as well as they have, because when you search for it, it's already getting slammed by the fact that Cassadaga is popular as a psychic destination. So there's tons of businesses coming up too. And then, Google's done them wrong because you can rent it on YouTube and they don't list that when you search it. At least it didn't come up for me. But I've noticed that too, because we noticed that with Malevolent. You are far more tolerant of a genre shift mid-movie than I am, because they shift on me and I'm like, you stole from me, and you're just like, oh yeah.
Well, honestly, it's like, how are they going to make this work? Like, how are they going to do it? And yeah, it's true. Bloody Disgusting did pan on it. Dread Central actually praised the film. Like I said, this is a polarizing film. It's unique in that respect. It's like, you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it at all. And that's kind of the strength and weakness. This is niche horror, is what it is. It's going to play to small pockets of the horror genre. Genre fans are going to really dig it. But anybody who's kind of like a kind of overall just horror fan, likes scary stuff, likes very specific things, is like they like their scares. Like, if I want to see jump scares, I go and see jump scares. If I want to see supernatural horror, I go and see that. Genre fans are going to dig it because they're going to say, "Oh, it's good. It's all the best parts of all the best parts of the buffet." But it's going to turn some people off, just like you. But that is the risk that you take with niche horror like this. It's like, it's a risk, and I like risk taking. I like that they did that. They didn't make it commercialized. They told the story they wanted to tell in the way that they wanted to tell it. That's part of the risk of doing that. If you're not willing to take risks as a filmmaker, then what the fuck are you being a filmmaker for?
See, and it's not a matter of risk for me. It's just like, I like depth, and that's I feel when you stick with a genre, like a single subgenre or a certain set of elements, and you develop upon those, you get more depth. I think when you shift, all of a sudden it's like developing a new tone and new depth, and that's where I kind of get hinged. Now, if you want to go stick with one and you want to get fucking like crazy with it and do something completely out there, I'm down for that. But like the second you Ghost picks up a knife, I'm like, all right, shit, I quit, I'm gone, bye.
Well, because a lot of it, when it comes with these genres, it's about the payoff on it, because these genres have the setup. It's just watching a slasher film. Oh, well, the teens are lake or the Everglades. What are you watching for? You're watching for the killer to start slashing teenagers and slashing college kids, and then they have the final girl in the conference, and it's just like, it doesn't matter who wins, but it's like, imagine if, hey, we got the teens and they're at the lake and we establish the slasher and he's ready to kill and all this other kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden a spirit comes out of nowhere and a teen gets possessed. And then, out of nowhere, zombies show up.
That's just Deus Ex Machina of the film, man.
And it never goes back to killer ever again.
Right.
And the
like I said,
hero.
Yeah, like I said, it does pull from a bunch, and I agree with Aaron on that one. But I think that was one of the things that kind of like, I'm a genre fan, and I like that they pulled from different things. They tried to make them, and I think they made them work. It's not as bad as it could have been, and I think what solidified this was the performance. It was very, very well cast. So smartly done in that. Anthony DiBlasi does really, really good. If you go back and watch Dread, his first film, that thing was phenomenally cast, because Dread was about essentially a film project about film students trying to figure out what people were afraid of. And that one was a deep, deep psychological horror, and how the film experiment, or the film project, essentially begins to reflect back on their own lives and trigger deep-seated terror or deep-seated dread that they have themselves. Really, really fucked up shit in that movie, but really strongly done. I really enjoyed it. And I like that he's not willing to sit in one place, that he will take what kind of interests him and try to pull it all together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's, like I said, the perils of niche horror. Sometimes you can sell it, sometimes you don't. So because this film is so polarizing, and because, many outlets were completely split on whether or not whether they enjoyed it or not, I want to ask the audience. So really, really simple. For for Cassadaga, thumbs up or thumbs down? Did you like it or did you not like it? Which side of the aisle did you fall on this one? I'm just kind of curious as to how many people dug it and how many people really did not. Let us know in the live chat or down in the comments below, or of course at weekinhorror@gmail.com. All right, Aaron. I think, okay, so Joshua Lee said, wait, is JL going to review the only really good movie in this bunch? This thing is rigged. No, because I think I gave the best one in the bunch to Aaron.
Oh, yeah. This next one, this is like this is one I've got personal attachment to.
Fucking
it's from October 22nd, 1982, just shortly before the best thing that ever happened. November 8th, 1982. I was born. It's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Let's check it out.
Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
You don't really know much about Halloween. Halloween, the barriers will be down between the real and the unreal. And the dead might be looking in. The last great one took place 3,000 years ago when the hills ran red.
Halloween, the children. You happen to know anything about this cockroach?
My boy.
All I can tell you, mister, is watch out. He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Trick or treat, trick or treat.
Hey, Mr. Cochran, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. To us, it was a way of controlling our environment.
Hey!
Where are they taking her?
They're taking her to the factory.
I want a mask. Can I have a mask?
Just what I had in mind for you, little buddy. Why, Cocker? Why? Do I need a reason?
I've got nothing here to indicate there was ever a body at all.
Operator, this is an emergency.
I do love a good joke, and this is the best ever.
That damn thing will live in your head till Christmas.
I'm glad
oh, yeah.
to watch it.
You've got to believe me.
They're going to kill us. All of us.
Stop it!
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. Happy Halloween.
Stop it!
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
Season of the Witch.
Yeah, this one actually has a deep place in my heart because I watched horror movies as younger, but I met in middle school one of the, I think the first friend that was in the horror movies is what, as much as I was with him, and we watched this thing, again and again. So, I hear two notes from that song, and I'm just like, But it is directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, written by Tommy Lee Wallace, John Carpenter, and Nigel Neal, and starring Jardine Barbour, Ralph Straight, Michael Curry, Stacey Nelkin, Dan O'Herlihy, and Tom Atkins. And it is essentially...
Tom Atkins!
Fuck yeah, Tom Atkins.
I'm a big fan. I fucking love Tom Atkins. The dude is fucking legend.
He's got Tom Atkins tattooed on his ass.
I love Tom Atkins. The fact that he has that unique look, and he was a fucking leading man, and that guy was getting so much tail in 80s films. It's unbelievable how many women got thrown at that man. It's and now I'm sitting here looking. I was watching this. I went back for the rewatch. I was like, oh, that's right. I have seen Tom Atkins' ass. And I've literally stood next to the man, and when he's like much older now, and I'm just like, so it's just hilarious. But Tom Atkins is the fucking champ, fucking Night of the Creeps. That's what I'm talking about.
Seeing him with Jamie Lee Curtis in The Fog, it's just like,
yes,
maybe getting old isn't gonna suck as much as I thought. Maybe it'll still be okay. But it's basically an investigator starts digging into a series of masks that have some rather violent and odd incidents associated with them. Once he backtracks them, he finds out they have a chip in them that when a commercial plays on Halloween, it is going to trigger them to basically turn children's head into like shit pudding with centipedes crawling out is the only way I can think to describe what happens with those poor kids and his attempts to stop this, which are dubious at best.
It was a dubious proposition at best. And yes, DeNova, you are correct. He was twice that girl's age. Dude, Tom Atkins moves fast. Tom Atkins sees tail. Tom Atkins gets tail. You know, maybe he's capitalizing on all the daddy issues that so many girls in the 80s had, but man, that dude fucking capitalized. I'm just going to say that. That's why he's amazing. And of course, it's his character in Night of the Creeps that sells it for me. That's why I love Tom Atkins, because if you're the film noir detective, you answer the phone with fucking thrill me. Like, yes, that is the kind of hero I want. So, because I just love everything the dude is in. Not to mention, he reminds me very much of my dad when he was the dad in Creepshow. Like, that's why God made fathers, babe. It was like, oh shit! It's like that was so my dad when I was growing up. He just like smacked the kid in the face. You see this crap you're letting him read? It's like, yeah, that was very much my father growing up.
Damn.
I may have some unresolved daddy issues myself.
I think JL's saying he wants to fuck him.
No,
could be wrong, but
fucking twisted.
He's like, I wouldn't turn it down.
Little from column A, little from column B. But going back and watching this one, definitely an underrated horror film. It completely did not do well at the box office. Obviously, Halloween and Halloween 2 were about Michael Myers. And this was a complete switch because the initial inspiration behind this was that, you know, Carpenter's production company wanted to do more of an anthology style. Kind of he wanted to every year do a Halloween film that was a different story, and that did not fucking play at all.
It did not.
Which is just a shame because the movie is so fucking underrated.
It's the thing that did it the worst, because the era was bad for it, but the worst thing for it was doing it with such an iconic character, and they might and some tiny little sliver of a universe way out on the edge of possibility gotten away with it if they did it as part 2, and there had been some talk and intention of that. But once they cemented Michael in part 2 and then tried to jump in part 3, they were done. And then you can tell too, examining it, the era wasn't great for it. I mean, anthology horror has been around for a good while, since back in I think it was the 30s actually was the first anthology horror. I think it was Dark of Night was the name of it. But the doing longer format anthology where you get through an entire longer plot cycle and then go to a new one, you can see an American Horror Story. Mm-hmm. Something similar to that now. No, it's not a movie, but it's an even longer format, and people are still tolerant of it. But yeah, those two things combined, it shot this thing down before it even came out of the nest.
And see, it's such a shame because it is a good horror film, and this is an excellent study on just pure expectations. Because if this was the second one, or maybe it wasn't called Halloween, called just Season of the Witch, and people went into a fresh set of eyes, not even expecting Michael Myers, and then you can watch and be like, oh, well, that's a really, because this is a really good horror film. And it's like, but the audience, what are they waiting for? What I was talking about earlier is slasher films are for the villain. Every other genre is about the characters, but slasher films is about the villain. And so everybody sitting there waiting for Michael, waiting for Michael, waiting for Michael. Michael doesn't come, and people are like, "What happens?" Instead of just taking in the story as it is.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier this episode. Is setting an expectation. If anything sets an expectation and people come to it and don't get it fulfilled, it's just gonna drop dead. Because this is you stepped out of with Michael, which later on they introduced supernatural elements. They did that. That was how you kept a slasher going back in the day, because you can only kill a son of a bitch so many times before he has to stay dead.
As evidence, Friday the 13th, Part 4 being the final one, and then having to bring it back supernaturally in Part 6 because Part 5 didn't have Jason in it and suffered the same way this one did.
Yep.
Yeah, and they stepped out of the non-supernatural realm into something supernatural. This was less single-focus opponent, more multi-focus opponent, and there was the things that really carried over to it are the things from John Carpenter's influence, back in the back. But beyond that, obviously it's horror, but almost everything was different, because even different subgenre. We're out of slasher, which Halloween invented, and now we're into supernatural. It's too different.
Right. That was the big thing, is like, and I, like I said, taking risks is all about, being a filmmaker is all about taking risks, trying to put something out there and trying to, I guess, you try to put something new out there, something new that can capture the audience's imagination and really try to bring along this. If this had really popped, if they'd be like, oh, interesting, then we could do this anthology thing. The problem is, anthologies at the time, when you look at things like Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Dark Side, anthologies really only worked in short form. So short form horror worked well because you have multiple short stories, multiple little short horror stories with a framing narrative. Unfortunately, trying to do this big thing, I think that it was way ahead of its time, this director, to try to do a connected kind of film anthology, but each movie that you release is something completely different. It was a giant risk at the time because they didn't want to get cemented down like Friday the 13th or any other slasher where we keep revisiting the same shit over and over and over again, because that gets tired. Carpenter recognized this out front, and Carpenter's always about trying to do new things, trying to tell new stories and new ways to really grab the audience. And I like what they did, but that's the perils of taking a chance, because sometimes it falls flat. And, I mean, what can you do? And unfortunately, because this thing fell flat, it would be 6 years before we get another one, and the only reason we got a fourth one is because they brought Michael Myers back. The same thing between it wasn't that long between 5 and 6, Friday the 13th, but the same thing. They weren't going to fund another one unless you brought back Jason. And so, that's the slasher icon. The money kind of outweighed on this one. The money and the the commercial appeal. They wanted the slasher. We're deep in the slasher genre at this point. We've already established multiple different areas. This was late in 1982, and I think that, if I remember correctly, I'm all over the place. I mean, I got Tom Atkins on the brain, so I'm totally spacing on when somebody remind me when Nightmare on Elm Street came out.
Nightmare on Elm Street,
the original 84. So yeah,
84.
2 years before, 2 years before Freddy. But we've already got Jason established. We've already got Michael established. Already got Leatherface established. So, and not to mention the deluge of slasher films that we have constantly talked about that came out after Friday the 13th smashed in 1980. So you got 2 years of just a dearth of slasher films. I can get wanting to get away from it and wanting to do something different. Unfortunately, they just don't swing that way sometimes.
And Nightmare on Elm Street was the one that reinvigorated the slasher. It was dying at that point, which it was a tactical move on their part to try and do this, but it was a poorly executed tactical move, which it's really disappointing, because this, like I said, this is a great movie. Like, amazing music, amazing acting, great writing. Like, the visuals on it are just like, ugh, which is good. And to think that the idea was almost sort of like a festival-ish idea, where every year around Halloween we get a whole new horror movie, and to have had it done under the John Carpenter umbrella, you're guaranteeing some quality there. So it's like, John Carpenter says this is shit, we don't go ahead. it would have really been a wonderful thing if people had been able to appreciate it for what it was, because you see that now in video games they've got, which they missed their deadline this year, but it's the I always forget the name of it. I think it's called the Dark Anthology or something like that. It'll hit me in a minute, but it's a video game, shorter video game that comes out every year. They drop a new one. They're dropping 5 totals from Supermassive Games, and it came out until this year. Came out before Halloween, so you had this nice scary game to look forward to, and it was an anticipation builder, and it was just a perfect time of year for it and everything. To have had that could have gone on for who knows how many movies, and eventually there would have been a drop in quality, but still, like, we robbed ourselves as horror fans by not being willing to, step out of our comfort zone and, go to the theater, put the ticket sales behind this, put the reviews behind it, and just get it off the ground.
Rodent LS name brings up slashers were becoming gimmicky, holiday specific weapons, etc. Right. So because there's only so many ways you can reinvent that subgenre, and the way you try to do something new. So you wind up trying to either change up the killer, change up the setting, change up the intricacy, make the kills more intricate or the kills more creative. There's only so much that you can do to that, and it is unfortunately, diminishing returns. Because there's only so many ways you can tell the exact same story. Killer targeting teens get killed, final girl come over and over and over again. And I applaud them. And for those who were asking, and I applaud them for trying to do something different. For those who asked, the music of this obviously was composed by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth. And you can tell there's elements in this that he reused for Christine, which is the kind of like synthesized tonality that he used throughout the little bits and pieces. And of course the jingle as well, which was the Silver Shamrock theme, which was set to London Bridge is Falling Down, and so which is why it's so catchy and iconic. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I kind of wish it had gone different, because I mean I know that Halloween 4 gave us Danielle Harris, and the continuation of that franchise allowed us to finally have the trilogy that we have today, which I really thoroughly enjoy. I wish this had kind of played in a different way. It didn't work the way Friday the 13th the series did, because Friday the 13th the series was excellent, but that was for television, short form horror. And then they just slapped, Mancuso just slapped fucking Friday the 13th on it. It was like, that'll sell it, and of course it did, and it was a good show. Unfortunately, that's that anthology short form horror that works in that respect. This one just didn't work at the time, way ahead of its time.
I'm kind of curious, and maybe, like I said, maybe ahead of its time, and maybe it's American Horror Story found the formula for it. But I would be kind of curious if, so let's say, Halloween did become an anthology like movie series, and it's like, how many times could you get somebody to watch? How many times to watch to get invested into something for, I guess, like 2 hours? And then knowing that, okay, well, it's gonna be gone. It would have been nice to see the different direction it could have gone. Well, on the other hand, maybe Mike wouldn't have become how he would in folklore.
That's true.
Because maybe, what if you had the first Halloween just the way it is, and then say the second one was Season of the Witch, and the Season of the Witch is successful, and then the third one becomes something different, fourth one different, so forth, so forth, so forth. And maybe the first Halloween is the only movie we ever get with Michael Myers.
Yeah, and then does that spawn off multiple, Fridays and multiple nightmares, and it would have changed the entire genre, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it could. I'm just saying, it could have had a huge impact, because with a lot of the serial or the killers we have in slashers that are one-ofs fall on the wayside. When you look at films like Prom Night and The Burning, that's like they're just kind of back there, and they kind of get lost in history.
Yeah.
So what?
We got some people talking about Carpenter, so because Carpenter didn't direct this. Carpenter, this was actually Tommy Lee Wallace's directorial debut, and then Tommy Lee Wallace went on to direct a number of other films. I think under his work, because he worked as associate art director. He worked as an art director on Dark Star and Assault on Precinct 13, so he was well connected with Carpenter. Then he was given this one, which is his first directorial debut. His directorial debut was Halloween 3. Then he also, I think he did Aloha Summer and Fright Night Part 2 and a number of other, just kind of like small films. For a directorial debut, I didn't think it was bad. He obviously came from, he pretty much tutored under John Carpenter. I thought he did quite well. You could definitely tell Carpenter's influence is all over this because Wallace was kind of living up to that expectation. Carpenter's kind of handed you the reins to the franchise name. Now you got to run with it. I thought it worked quite well, especially for someone so new. Especially because originally I think he wasn't supposed to. Joe Dante was originally supposed to direct this, but then he was pulled off. I think he quit and directed a segment of the Twilight Zone movie. He directed one of the segments. So then they needed a new one. Tommy Lee Wallace was available, so they grabbed him real quick. So yeah. I wouldn't say this is a flub. I wouldn't call this a flub. I think this was a hit. And then, of course, DeNova says Carpenter's biggest flub was Ghost of Mars. That's definitely up there. Travis Brown says
bad.
Yeah, Travis Brown said, I thought Carpenter's biggest flub was Village of the Damned. I would disagree because I think the performances of Christopher Reeves and Kirstie Alley actually saved that film. I thought Christopher Reeves was amazing in that. So that's
didn't
just my
get
opinion.
marketed correctly on that one, I've got to say. That's why I never hit big.
Right. And then, of course, Tony Regime says Dark Star is a fantastic film. The lift scene is so good. So, this is just one of those things. Unfortunately, I don't think it gets the love that it deserves. I think it deserves a hell of a lot more. It's a well-crafted story, decently acted for what it is. It's not intended to be a knife film. It's more intended to be a pod film, which is why it takes so much inspiration from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is kind of where even that final scene, stop it, it's very much, him running through traffic trying to warn people about it. It's the same kind of thing, and that's how the film ends. So it was a big shift, a big throttle shift, and unfortunately, I wish it played out differently just to see what would happen. But yeah, good stuff. I'm glad more people need to see it. More people need to appreciate it.
This is a year to freaking see it.
This is
got
the year to see it.
2.5 weeks to Halloween. Go buy, rent, whatever this damn movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sir Cab says John Carpenter's worst flub was making The Thing so fucking amazing that every other movie he's made since pales in comparison. This is true. He gets held up. Obviously, my favorite film of all time.
All right, the audience question and how you can tell that JL writes the audience questions.
Yes, I
What
do.
is your favorite Tom Atkins horror movie? You can let us know at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Drop it in the comments or let us know in the live chat. And I'm sticking with the Fog. He picks up Jamie Lee Curtis, bangs her, and is like, "Woman, we're going killing ghosts," which explains a lot of how I turned out.
Just picks it. That man moved. He moves fast. Like it moved quick. It's like because Jamie Lee Curtis was hitchhiking and just picked her up and was like, "Okay, we're gonna do it." It's just now we got to go battle shit. And I got to go be the hero, which is fucking amazing.
And she doesn't ditch him either. She should have just been like, "Well, peace out. I'll see you later." But she's like, "I'll stick around for seconds. Let's do this and then come back."
But I gotta say, so your favorite's The Fog. My favorite's Night of the Creeps. Eugene, what about you?
You know what? I might do a fun one on it, and I'll go ahead. I'll do Maniac Cop. I'm going to go fun with this one.
That's
awesome.
definitely an interesting movie. Like that's the good all over the place sort of movie.
So Denova asked, what was the point of turning the chick into a robot? And I think that was supposed to be kind of like one of those insidious reveals. It's like, because after she gets picked up, and I totally remember, this was a rewatch for me, but I hadn't seen it in years. But I was like, oh, that's right. Because after he pulls her out of the room, she never has any lines. And because of that, I was like, that's right, because she's been changed. So that was supposed to be like the shocking, where it was like, they even got her. You're all alone. And so that was
increased.
kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
How suddenly alone at the end. Travis Brown says Halloween 3. Joshua Lee, I do not have a Tom Atkins tattoo, and I don't plan on getting one. Sir Cab says he's a freaking stud in everything. I don't think I've seen one I didn't like. Denova 20 says, wasn't he in My Bloody Valentine 3D? If so, was he in that one?
Yeah, you're talking about the 2009 one, right?
Yeah, the one with Jensen Ackles?
Yeah, he's in that one.
That one, all I remember from that one is 3D tits. Everything else I left in the theater.
I do remember that he had a small turn as a movie theater, as the guy running the movie theater in the slasher film. Was it Trick? Which is about a cult that wore the same killer's mask. It was a reversible pumpkin mask. So he played a small role in that one as the guy who runs the movie theater on Halloween and shows. Dang it! I hit my mic and shows horror films.
About Tom Atkins and fucked up his microphone.
Oh yeah, he was in Lethal Weapon. That's right. And Tony Regime says Maniac Cop in the Fog. So many. I mean, the guy himself said in an interview that if he could make a career out of just doing horror films, that he would do it. So, because he loves playing the hero. Oh, Denova 28 is also Drive Angry.
Same thing.
Oh yeah.
Denova 28 is Drive Angry. Yeah, he was in so many good ones. So definitely let us know down in the comments below or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. All right, Eugene, it is trivia time, bud.
Yeah. One day I'll be able to get that right. One day.
Alex just does it so well. So for tonight's... Oh, wrote it in the last name, brought up Escape from New York as well. Yeah. So, for tonight's trivia question, trivia answer is Tom Atkins. No, the trivia answer is not Tom Atkins.
Changing the question.
It's Tom Atkins' butt tattoo.
Where on jail is the Tom Atkins tattoo? No. But for tonight's trivia question, we are giving away a Week in Horror limited edition coffee mug. It's a special one featuring the limited edition art from Joshua Olsen. So in case you don't have one of those in your collection, we're giving one away tonight. And don't forget, in the Week in Horror Discord channel, we have a channel where you can show off all of your Week in Horror swag. So put up all the photos of all the stuff you've won from us, of all the stuff that we've sent you. Throw it up there so everybody can see what it looks like, because some of that stuff looks amazing, especially like the hoodie and the pint glass. All of them are great. But tonight we're giving away an official limited edition mug for the first person to get the correct answer in the live chat for this trivia question. Take it away, Eugene.
All right, get your Google fingers ready. The question is, what was the first major film makeup effects legend Baker ever worked on? What was the first major film makeup legend Rick Baker worked on? The first one to comment below gets the prize.
First one in the live chat. See who's got it.
See, sarcasm's already like, I got it, but
I'm sitting
out. Oh, he's giving it to somebody else. All right, let's see.
No, Tony Regime, not The Sound of Music.
You have to excuse Tony. He's a jerk. Oh, yeah, and we got...
There it is!
Rodent, no last name, Octoman. Spelling's a little off, but... I think
it finally caught up.
Are close enough to count.
Rodent,
that works for me, Octoman.
That works, Octoman. So yes, it was Octoman. 1971 was the first major film that Rick Baker, that legend Rick Baker, ever worked on. So congratulations, wrote it no last name. Let me get your name down. Fantastic. Congratulations, wrote it no last name. Travis Brown said The Exorcist. Angel Rivera also said The Exorcist. Nope. Ordinary Jeff said Planet of the Apes. But yeah, Octoman. So go and check that one out if you get the opportunity, because it's goofy as fuck. Although I will say, the only good thing about it was Rick Baker's monster design, because it actually looked pretty decent.
Everybody starts somewhere.
Wrote it no last name says, why wasn't it paired with the Deadly Sting? Oh, brilliant. All right. So big congratulations to Wrote It No Last Name for winning that. Thank you all so much. That will bring another episode of Week in Horror to a close. Thank you all so much for listening, and we truly hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next week when we look back at the Carpenter classic, Prince of Darkness, the end of the original werewolf franchise, The Howling, New Moon Rising, the gonzo creature feature, Don't Fuck in the Woods, and the classic trauma horror comedy, Terror Firmer. Yes, it's called Don't Fuck in the Woods. What do you want from me? Remember to cast your votes for me, for JL, to be the first face of horror, using the link provided in the description and in the live chat. And of course, a massive shout out to all of our amazing patrons who continue to help us make Week in Horror the incredible success it has become. Thank you all so very, very much. It's right there. Yes, I got the banner correct. That's the direction the banner travels in. So thank you all so very, very much. Oh, a double clutched on me. Joshua Olsen does all of the amazing artwork for our show, and his designs are incredible. Hit his store up at www.badsamurai.store. And for more horror fun, be sure to follow us on all of the socials for daily horror posts. Be sure to combat that evil algorithm by dropping a comment, liking, subscribing, and smashing the living fuck out of that notification bell. And lastly, if you love what we do here and would like to and are able to support our production, you can by joining and enjoying the tasty benefits of one of our many Patreon tiers. For as low as $1 a month, you can help us to make the show. And we have tiers with awesome prizes and access to the show behind the scenes. So please check that out. But if Patreon is not your favorite stocking method, you can always support us directly through our PayPal. Links to everything, including our Discord community, where you can hang out with us, are in the description below. And remember, the goal here at Week in Horror is global horror domination, and we cannot do it without you, our amazing audience. So pretty please, with the severed infested head of Clint Howard on top, go share the absolute fuck out of our little show. Thank you all for being the greatest audience a podcast could ever have. I am JL.
I'm Aaron.
Gene.
I think you broke up a little bit.
Did I? Is it?
We'll see you all next week. We'll see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.